Hey everyone, Drew here, and today we are going to create the first database tier list of 2024, as usual based on 101 top teams from around the world, looking at all the OG Champions arenas. Lots of new units to cover first, and then we will look at all the changes in the tiers besides those units. First up we have Odin, this new Storm SSR, the latest in a long row of strong Storm SSR releases, and quite possibly one of the very best P2 units right now, because he really doesn't, or she, sorry, she doesn't care where she is placed as long as you still create a decent amount of ravens. If she has that full awakening, of course, she will have that very great survivability, the supreme stun that basically takes a unit completely out of the game with like 500 TU if it goes through. The powerful Ragnarok, which creates even more ravens yet again, and speaking of the ravens, those are of course the main feature of Odin, these kind of winged shades that enter the battlefield, steal one spirit from the opponent, potentially stun one enemy, have very high speed so they can quickly revive Odin, potentially. There is a video on my channel where there's literally dozens of ravens and just Odin alive at the end of a battle and completely defeating another full team of SSRs. So she deserves to go to the SSS tier for now. Yes, burn and more mega poison and also stun immunities can be annoying for her, but nevertheless such an easy plug into most teams. Yet I do have to point out that she's not really a carry unit. Yes, I did just tell the story of her basically single-handedly defeating an enemy team, but in general you want something with a little more staying power on the battlefield, because potentially if Odin, for example, gets banished to the back, the ravens cannot revive her, of course. Though to be fair, I mean, any unit that is not immovable can be banished to the back, especially in times of Cleopatra. Before we get to Cleopatra, let's cover another dark SSR that was released, and that is Loki, the kind of additional part to the Odin event. She has some very interesting functionalities with her dark hypnosis, for example, and this kind of possible evasive stance at first, so kind of good opener. Can use the devil stance, which can also be quite lethal with the spread of mega poison. But all in all, she is a bit specific, a bit niche, and she doesn't seem to fit well into a lot of different meta teams, and that was certainly not made better by the subsequent releases, for example in Water Anya, in Cleopatra, in Gilgamesh, all of them I think not necessarily helping Loki to become more relevant. The one release that could help her is CRizette, but it is still to be seen how that will interact with each other. For now, unfortunately, I don't see a way where Loki becomes really top tier as predicted in my review video when she first came out. So for now, she is going to the S tier. Next up, Water Anya, a unit that kind of revolutionized the meta. Rarely have we seen a unit that caught on so quickly and powerfully like Water Anya. Yes, I did point out the big weakness in her review, that is stun. Basically, if she is stunned, it doesn't look good for her, but everything else is just so good about this kind of sleep and barrier unit. Her survivability without being stunned is great. The self-purify and full heal when the power barrier goes down, just really nice. And not only that, because if she gets the turn, she can use this super powerful Aegis Overload, the quite possibly best active skill in the entire game right now, producing so much spirit, dishing out so much damage, changing the status effects on your own units, healing and weakening the opponent. So much good stuff in that one skill alone, and we didn't even speak about her elemental circuit passive yet, which enables all of your units entering while she is on the battlefield, all conjured, non-conjured units entering while on the battlefield to become entry effect units. All that is to say, she goes straight to the SSS tier. She was actually the #1 in the SSR world rankings in December 2023. Now for the remaining SSRs, unfortunately, we do not have enough data yet to really reliably tier them, but I am gonna give you a little bit of a subjective prediction for each of them. So we have Cleopatra. I think at this point, after seeing her for a while, she will go to the SSS tier. Gilgamesh, on the other hand, great unit for burn units, definitely a must-have for those. Unfortunately, I don't think it is enough to bring them back into the spotlight, so Gilgamesh will struggle to surpass the S tier, as I said already in my review video last week. Nevertheless, possibly the best burn unit in the game right now, so if burn is your style, run for that, and I think you will have some decent success as well, especially against certain kind of teams that are just getting really weak against burn right now. That is also true for teams including possibly CRizette, which is the 3rd Earth unit in a row that has a really big burn weakness built into her skill set. Then again, the same was true for Sleeping Beauty and Kaguya, and they went to the SSS tier anyways. Let's see how CRizette will do, because she's more of a mix between the poison and the sleep, but the noxious sleep that she brings to the table is really insane. I think possibly the best negative status effect in the game right now, especially because units that are having that noxious sleep are not woken up by any attacks, so this is great to combine with any type of team. So much for the new units. Let's go through the tier changes now, starting at the Graveyard tier, which is unfortunately joined by Kisara. This Survivor Burn unit just isn't up to standards nowadays, except maybe for the art, so I think she has some better chances in my currently ongoing True Art Appreciation, where we are trying to find out which SSRs have the best art. If you haven't already, check out the community tab on my channel and cast your votes. We have 2 units that are actually going into the opposite direction, kind of revived from the Graveyard tier, not super strong, but still we have Orzagron going into the F tier with his really strong stun entry and high hate. He is kind of a nice plug and play that quickly possibly dies. Other than his stun entry, his skill set is really outdated. The same is true to some degree if we look at Dark Colin. Nowadays already quite some time has passed, of course not as many years as with Orzagron, but still as a poison unit she can be used in some teams. On the other hand, we have Fire Ray going down. This will probably not change with Gilgamesh, I think, because I mean there is only so many burn spots that usually top teams have, and Fire Ray doesn't make the cut for top 5 in any of them, I think. Sakura is down as well, this kind of overdrive support unit, just relatively outdated at this point. We have Bunny Riz going down as well, despite sleep being so prevalent right now. The kind of forced sleep that she first introduced back in the days, back in 2021, is now pretty standard on all sleep units, so nothing special anymore. Unfortunately, with a heavy heart, I have to say that Artimaya is also going down, one of my favorite 1-copy off-banner units, because of that Spirit Plus entry, because of that stun entry, and because her skills are just really more about helping your team, so it isn't that the case that she is doing much damage when she gets the turn. But let's not dwell on it. Let's look up to the E tier, where we see Fire Mirai fall into after this latest update. Same story as with Fire Ray. She is just not really up to date anymore, up to standard. Though, let's see if she gets a slight boost from Gilgamesh. I think her chances are better than Fire Ray's. Another unit dropping into the E tier is Storm Colin, which is a stun unit that was kind of nice to use as a 1-copy to kind of immediately enrage and quicken your team, but that is certainly not longer the standard. even at lower levels, Stormcaller is rather weak at this point. Rin is going to the E tier as well. This kind of dark poison unit has some super poison in it, so at least that is good counter to some of the threats we see in the current meta, but nevertheless a rather unassuming skill set, especially because she has a kind of savage skill set. There are much better savage units nowadays, so you might not actually wanna see her snag a kill from one of these other units. The normal poison flip all is also underwhelming at this point. If she was released today, she would definitely have something like a mega poison flip all, and Hold Ground Plus in general isn't what it used to be when Rin was released. We have a unit that is going into the opposite direction, a previous #1 living a little bit of a resurgence here. We have Dark Snow White going from the E to D tier. I think this is a bit of a fluke, but nevertheless good for her. Still a great Dawn unit if you are just starting out, but of course so many better units at this point. As always, I do have to point out that anything under B tier I wouldn't actively pull for if you are not trying to get some fellowships. That is true for the next few units as well. We have 3 units going down from C to D tier. Earth Alira, yes, she is an autoguard, an SSR autoguard, but the lowest ranked for a reason, because she is only a part-time, well, no, part-time is the wrong word. She is only a part probability guard, not 100%, just 60%. So not super reliable, and also besides that, not super strong in terms of her skill set and her survivability. Even Light Ludmilla much better at that with her hold ground and with the 100% guarding probability. Dark Raina is also going down. She has that kind of interesting entry effect that is very strong and the doppelganger mechanic, but nowadays I think she would need something like an immediate doppelganger effect instead of, you know, having to kill and then still having to survive until she can actually call the doppelganger, which is usually prevented maybe by some of the other units. And so yeah, deservedly D tier at this point, I think. And then we have Storm Ludmilla, a 2023 unit, granted one of the very early variety, now also going to the D tier. She had a bit of a speedy skill set, but all in all quite underwhelming at this point. Another 2023 unit is losing a tier, although one higher up. We have Honoji going to the C tier from the B tier. Yes, this is partially because of Burn's weakness. I don't know, maybe Gilgamesh can give her a little boost again. I wouldn't necessarily count on it though, but let's stay tuned. Meanwhile, a previous #1 in Storm Elmina is going down to the C tier. Granted, to be honest, I think this is actually doing her favors. I think this is still some legacy effects that I am trying to price out with my methodology, but still, I mean, she is being used in 8% of the top teams. And so currently in the C tier, she is also joined there by Lighty Beaky. She had a small resurgence after the King Arthur release because her banish was one of the very few that can activate straight away and possibly put an end to King Arthur's shenanigans. But unfortunately, at this point, this is not enough to keep her viable in the meta. Another problem with her, of course, is with the current big amount of great savage units that you might not actually want to have these Moris spawn next in reinforcements after her while she is on the battlefield. Something that was actually a really great feature back when she was released in 2021. Wow, it's been a while. We look upwards and we have 4 units actually losing the A tier rating. 2 of them are burn units, and maybe they get some resurgence with the Gilgamesh release, but right now the data says they no longer deserve that A tier rating and they have to go to the B tier. It is Fire Elmina and Freya. Freya, the burn unit with the Hold Ground Plus effect. Fire Elmina, the one with the burn stun entry. In a burn team, I would probably prefer Fire Elmina right now. On the other hand, Freya is more universal and can also be used outside of a burn team. However, you want to keep her away from these new Earth units, and that might become more and more difficult. On the other hand, not only burn is suffering, we have normal sleep suffering as well. Apparently, we have Water Jeanne going down to the B tier, this kind of sleep entry unit that can also put some angelic sleep on the enemy team and then call her sister Michaela. Had some kind of unique mechanic in terms of the Jeanne-Michaela tandem compared to many of the other Jeanne releases that we've seen. But yeah, she isn't keeping up super well anymore. Same can be said for Water Snow White. She's also having a hard time given the very low survivability that she has without any endure or hold ground, despite the counter skin that made her so powerful when she was released in 2022. There are just many attacks that ignore the counter skin right now, or just, you know, a lot of strong storm units that can quickly spell her end. Looking further up, we also see another water unit there going from the S to A tier. It is now Water Colin. Granted, we now see Cleopatra, which also has some strong imposter mechanic, much better than Water Collins. Though I wonder if some of the top teams will try to kind of combine those to have an additional supply of imposters that might keep Cleopatra alive. Though at the same time, it has to be said that Water Colin also likes to kill those imposters. So yeah, kind of a trade-off potentially. And again, I feel like I'm a broken record at this point, but we see 2 more burn units drop to the A tier. It is Nobunaga, this kind of universal burn support unit. And then there's also Bright Astrid, which is suffering, like all the other burn units, from less and less burn in the meta. For both of these, I am somewhat optimistic that they could make the jump back up into one of the S tiers with the Gilgamesh release, but probably needing still another one, another strong burn release to really become relevant again. Quite unfortunate, especially of course for Bright Astrid, a 100% guard that has been in the top tiers for quite a long time. But now she joins the poison guard Earth Anya in the A tier. Now in the S tier, everything else remains unchanged. We only have 4 units currently in the S tier, but there are some more at the top. Speaking of the top, the previous #1 Cinderella has to go now. Unfortunately, she is dropping from the SSS tier to the SS tier. The whole kind of cursed sleep and hold ground plus ignores are really doing a number on her, despite still being this really strong universal unit. 94% usage still, but usually in the later platoons where she has less impact on the battle than when she was a platoon 1 staple. Still by far the highest rated unit in the SS tier, though we also still see the 2 Jeannes in the SSS tier. Angel Jeanne, of course, a really great combo with Kaguya, and just generally some survivability and entry that really needs to be considered. Let's see where she lands after this second banner has just concluded. Storm Jeanne is a bit surprising to me. I mean, yes, 96% usage, but still such a common mainstay in the second platoon. Her Michaela's Vengeance mechanic is still something to absolutely watch out for, and that is something that is countering some of these other units styles that are nowadays in the top meta, because you really need to take out both Storm Jeanne and Storm Michaela if they are on the battlefield. Of course, it isn't common anymore to see Storm Jeanne right at the start in Platoon 1s, where you had kind of a nice way of also putting guards next to them and constantly having Storm Michaela come in and revive. But yeah, she keeps going. She is still in the SSS tier after all this time, according to the data, with 8 million true power. Something similar can be said of Sleeping Beauty, who has actually risen a little bit, although the Gilgamesh release might push her back down a little. Yes, 92% usage, but this might actually shift more and more to the later platoons. The Thorn mechanic with her stun immunity, possibly some part-time guarding is absolutely insane. If you are not facing any burn units, then she is still one of the best in the game, and I think you can still possibly say that she is the best one copy SSR in the game right now, although some of the recent releases are really challenging that statement. We also still see Light Anya in the SSS tier as the highest rated SSR guard, 100% guarding ability, and the stun absorber is a nice feature, which also partially deactivates Gilgamesh's strong passive at the start. King Arthur is dropping a little bit in true power, but still an absolute mainstay in the platoon ones right now. The big problem that I always have to point out with King Arthur is that she really needs to be in platoon 1, or rather in the starter SSRs, to have any big impact, and somebody like Cleopatra might be a huge threat to her. So I would be really cautious how long she can still stay in the SSS tier. She had a great run, but despite still being number 3 in the SSR World Rankings in December, she might soon join Cinderella as a number 1 SSR that falls to the SS tier. And then we have Kaguya, great cursed sleep unit, a real staple in platoon 1s together with somebody like Angel Jeanne, maybe nowadays also with Cleopatra, possibly with Water Anya, although they somehow deactivate some of their abilities from each other, but still kind of a good backup because Kaguya is a bit weak against burn units. So let's see if the Gilgamesh release changes her position here. I still think she's super strong. She can absolutely spread cursed sleep like crazy on the battlefield. The 50 time unit stun reduction is also a nice touch, I think, and the passive healing just from having sleeping units have a turn is also nice. Granted, if she is out in the open, her survivability falls, but at least she has the stealth shield to avoid some of the negative status effects that would kill her endure too quickly. And as I said, Anya, currently number 1, finishes off this SSS tier that is getting a little bit crowded. Let's see how it looks like next time. I do want to keep it a bit more exclusive, but the true power really makes it look like this right now. So we have quite a few must-have units right now in the meta. So there you have it, the latest database tier list based on all the top servers around the world, from Japan, from China, from Korea, from English-speaking Asia in general. We have French, German, Spanish, English, European servers in the mix as well as the Americas. That is the North and the South American OG servers that go into this. It takes me quite a while to compile all this data into one tier list. Over 10 hours go into the making of this video and the data behind it. So I would really appreciate it if you would like and subscribe to become a true carrot. If you want an image of the tier list, make sure to join my Discord server, where there is an announcement channel where I regularly post the latest database tier lists and SSR world rankings. I hope you have a nice day, and as always, thanks for watching.